Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Hesse Bros Pod. Merry Christmas. Myself, Brent Hesse, my brother Luke, here in person today for some Hesse Bros Pod. Enjoying the Christmas season. Hope you're having a Merry Christmas as well. And boy, did Christmas deliver us some beautiful football. Well, Luke, since we've had the last pod, Chiefs, 2 wins against playoff teams, taking down the Texans at home last Saturday, then a beatdown in Pittsburgh this week. Chiefs, they're rolling, baby.
Chiefs are looking good, and also the Lions are looking good too. The league's really heating up right now. We got games basically every single day now, so what's there not to love about the NFL? Everyone thought the Lions were dead in the water, but look at us now. Looks like our defense is starting to come together a little bit and still got the best offense in the league.
Just because you beat Caleb Williams, you think that's going to cut it? I mean, I know I was a big Bears guy earlier this season, but I've been off that train for a while. I think we've still got our reservations about the Lions, at least I do. But yeah, Kansas City, I mean, they are on a tear, Luke. I know you've been doubting the Chiefs. Do you start to see the picture that I've been trying to paint this whole entire season, that the Chiefs are the team to be reckoned with, of course, as back-to-back Super Bowl champs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see it, Brent. I mean, especially getting their receivers back. Hollywood's back. Hopkins is playing well. And Kelsey late in the season, you always got to watch out for him. You know, on those 4th downs, 3rd downs, and in the end zone. He finally got in on Christmas to break Tony Gonzalez's record. I know you're hyped about that.
Oh, yeah, I did. Tried to do the dunk on the goalpost because he set the Chiefs franchise record for most touchdowns in a career. So congratulations to Killer Trav, 87, for getting it done. And the Chiefs got it done. They are now officially the 1 seed in the AFC. So the Bills can kiss that bye goodbye. They're not getting it. Nobody else is going to be getting it. It's Kansas City's, and it's going to be a fun time in the playoffs. Now, the difference, though, is the Chiefs now have 25 days until they'll play another snap of meaningful football because, obviously, next week they have nothing to play for against the Broncos in the season finale. Then there's the week off for the bye, and it's already a long week because they played on a Wednesday instead of a Sunday, so a lot of time for this Chiefs team, but you know what? I'm fine with it. It was an early bye. This is an experienced team, not a team that I think is going to be hurt by some time off because they've got an experienced quarterback, experienced coach, and they'll be ready to go come playoff time.
Yeah, it's kind of like a full month off, something like you'd see in a college atmosphere.
Right.
After your last game, you get another month to prepare for a bowl game. That's what it's going to be like getting ready for that game in Arrowhead in the divisional round. That's going to be interesting, and we'll end up seeing who they play, but it looks like the only 2 really other contenders in the AFC are the Ravens and Bills, and it looks like they might be slated for a matchup in that same round.
Yes, the 2 and the 3 seed. Hopefully, the Chiefs not only winning did it help, but also really wanted to knock the Steelers out of the 3 seed. That way, if the Bills and the Ravens both win, they'll play each other in the divisional round. Chiefs will only have to worry about the winner of that game in the AFC Championship. Of course, who will see who ends up coming to Arrowhead for that divisional game. Could be a lot of different teams. We're going to talk about some playoff scenarios as we get into this pod, but we've got the Texans are in the playoffs, Steelers are in the playoffs, Chargers and Broncos both have not clinched yet, correct? So they've got to get another win or see some teams lose, but then there's some teams knocking on the door in the AFC, and there's some fun playoff scenarios in the NFC, so let's jump into it, Luke. Well, last week, what else happened that was big playoff implications?
Well, the one that comes to mind for me is finally one of the 2 contenders for that number 1 seed in the NFC finally got a loss. The Commanders got it done. B-Hess, great pick last week on that one. You killed that. But, the Commanders are starting to come on strong. Jalen Hurts goes down early in that game, and Commanders end up getting it done right at the buzzer. That was one of the best games all season. Just absolutely electric to watch, and finally the Eagles get the loss. Now all the Lions need is 1 loss from the Vikings, and we're basically in. We can either beat them in Week 18, or they can lose to the Packers this week, and the Lions get the dub. And we'll have a long break just like the Chiefs before that number 1.
And the Lions definitely needed a lot of guys banged up. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that I predicted Jalen Hurts going out, but I'll take the money line on the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, man, I'm a fan of that guy. 5 touchdowns. He made some mistakes in that game too, but was able to bounce back from them against a really good defense. The Eagles' defense is impressive. It doesn't look like Hurts is going to play this week. He may play against the Cowboys, still to be determined. Hasn't practiced yet this week, though, so that'll be a big factor. And, with the Eagles' loss, though, they've kind of got that 2 seed basically guaranteed. It's going to be pretty hard for them to get back to the 1, and they're not going to drop any further, so they may be able to just coast into that 2 seed. And Washington, huge win for them to stay in the wild card mix right now. They would currently be the 7 seed, because there's some teams chasing on their heels, including the Falcons and the Bucks and the NFC West with the Seahawks and the Rams. So a lot of excitement for Washington to be able to get that win, and now it looks like they've got a good chance to make the playoffs. I think that they could be a dangerous team in the playoffs. They could be that Eagles-Washington matchup in the 2-7 again, and Washington, they've got some confidence after that one, so that was an exciting game for sure on Sunday.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, if they're meeting up in that 2-7 spot, the Eagles will have not played a meaningful game in about a month as well, at least 3 weeks. And the Commanders will, they have a tough game coming up this week. They got to get the win, to ensure that they're going to get a good seed and all that. So it's going to be interesting seeing the Commies kind of do their best to make a late push when the Eagles are just sitting back. Then they could be slated for that matchup. That would be electric.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Luke. It's going to be a fun matchup this week. Sunday Night Football, Falcons and Washington. So a huge game for the NFC race. That one we're going to talk about more. Any other games from last week to recap?
Yeah, I think the Vikings got another win just by the hairs on their chinny chin chin. I don't really know how they keep doing it, but they just keep seeming to win games, and they have tied for the best record in the NFC. This team is looking scary, but they've got 2 really tough matchups that finish the year. They were able to take care of the Seahawks last week, but we'll see how they end up finishing the year here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about their matchup as well. Those are, I think, the 2 best games still left on this slate of weeks is Vikings versus Packers and Washington, Atlanta. So do you want to go ahead and talk about those matchups?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So, of course, we had Chiefs get the dub, Ravens get the dub. Wow, I'm excited to see where you've got those 2 teams in the 12-pack, Luke, because those are both great teams playing really well. Always fun to see Lamar dominate. And that defense holding Houston to 0 points. The offense gave up 2 points on a safety. That was it. That's been the weak point all season long, besides Justin Tucker. So that's pretty huge.
Yeah.
Now we've got to talk about these 2 games. Vikings-Packers. Well, Luke, for you, obviously, you want the Vikings to lose because then the Lions could clinch the 1 seed on Monday night against the 49ers. But do you think it's going to happen?
I do think it's going to happen. I think the Packers match up pretty well against the Vikings. They got absolutely blitzed in their first matchup in the first half, and they almost fought all the way back to win that game from down like 28 points. So I think the key here is going to be the running game, and I think the Packers are going to be able to dominate that matchup. Josh Jacobs has been playing like one of the best running backs in the league all season, and they've been feeding him. He's been playing really well, and he was able to get some rest last week too after starting off the game hot, but they didn't really have to do anything against the Saints late in that game. And so I think that rush attack's looking great, and the Vikings, with Aaron Jones, basically only him, they don't have really a nice complement to him, and I feel like it's going to be tough to run on that Packers defense. They have one of the best rush defenses in the league, and so it's going to be all on Sam Darnold's shoulders, and I don't think he can come through. I know he's been playing great all year, but I think that the combination of him, playing for some big stakes here, right? And Kevin O'Connell's going to have a good game plan. But at the end of the day, I think Jordan Love, those young receivers, they've played well late in the season. Last year, got a huge win against the Cowboys in the playoffs. And I think that they're going to be ready to go. LaFleur has been one of the best coaches in the year, too, this year. So it's going to be a matchup. It's going to be great matchups all over the field for this game. And I think the Packers have the advantage in the ones that really matter.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is the way that this game, the first time these 2 teams played, went. Vikings got out to that huge lead. It was first game back for Jordan Love after he got hurt in the season opener. Then second half, Packers storm back, almost win, but Vikings hold them off. Now, long time removed. That was like week 3 or 4. Now here we are towards the end of the season, second to last week of the year, week 17. I think I'm with you. I think I like the Packers a little bit more in this matchup. I've been fading the Packers the last couple of weeks, and it hasn't worked out well. So maybe it's time to rely on the Packers once, and I think they could do it. I do like Packers in that matchup as well. The other one, so that means Lions against 49ers on Monday night. Let's
get to it. Yeah, so I think the Lions are going to be able to play really well in this game. I think their offense, we understand the assignment here, right? Our offense has to take over with all the defensive injuries, and we've been shown to do that. We still have the most points per game in the league. I can see us easily putting up over 30 points. And with the way that Purdy's been playing recently, Deebo Samuel, I think he might have a good game, but I just feel like they don't have enough to be able to compete with the Lions offense in this one. The Lions defense can get opportunistic stops, maybe a pick here, especially if Purdy's pressing down the field, which he usually doesn't have to do. But this, as we've seen, whenever he does have to do it, it doesn't end up working out too great for the 49ers. I think this is a great spot for the Lions. It should be a nice day out there in San Francisco, and I see the Lions winning probably 34-24.
Feel of that NFC Championship game from last year, going back to San Francisco for the first time since that defeat. And now the question, though, is the Lions, if the Vikings do win, though, this game doesn't really have any implications. It doesn't help them to win or lose because it'll just come down to that Vikings game on Week 18, the final day of the regular season. So is there any thought for the Lions that if the Vikings win the day before, that the Lions, try to take that game off at all?
Well, for some people might think that would happen for different teams, but for the Detroit Lions, that's not going to happen. You all know Dan Campbell. He's pushing to win every game he can. Even if we do end up locking up the 1 seed, he's still going to do all he can to beat the Vikings in that final game of the season, even if we have it locked up. We might not play golf, might not play our best players, but he's still going to come up with a game plan and do everything he can to win that game. And I see a similar thing happening, but I don't see us benching anyone either because we're still trying to get ready for that Vikings game. That will be such an important game, obviously, if the Vikings do beat the Packers. So I think that either way, the Lions should be able to get it done. But, at the end of the day, it won't really matter that much if the Vikings do win. So I'm not really too worried about it if they do. The Lions could lose a game there, and it'd be whatever.
And then another thing that's interesting now, as we talk about the NFC playoff picture, is that last spot right now. Washington has it, and the race for both the West and the South. Those are kind of the 3 spots open in the NFC, and 2 of those teams contesting it is the Commanders and the Falcones on Sunday night. Falcons now back in the driver's seat in the South after the Cowboys beat the Bucs on Sunday night. So if the Falcons win their last 2 games, they are in, or if they just match whatever the Bucs do in the last 2 games. But the Falcons have a tough one on the road at Washington this week. Meanwhile, the Bucs get an easier one against Panthers, but Panthers getting pretty good. They knocked out my sneaky Cardinals this week to put them to bed for the season. So who knows? But
who knows?
What do you think? Can the Falcons beat Washington?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great game too. I really do think these are the 2 best rookie quarterbacks in the draft this year. I mean, Penix has really shown his accuracy. Even in that first game, he was playing great. His only pick was because Kyle Pitts can't catch the ball, and he's just an absolute head case whenever it comes to the way that they drafted him and the way his career has gone. It's like they could have had so many better players, and the Falcons would be in a better position. But that's just what some teams do. That's how the Falcons go sometimes. But at the end of the day, I think the Commanders are barely going to sneak this one out. I think Jaden Daniels has the experience in the league, and against this Falcons defense, even if they do get some pressure, he's going to be able to evade it. And he's been playing so well. He had a little dip in the middle of the season where he wasn't playing his greatest football, and people thought Bo Nix could overtake him for the Rookie of the Year, but
not happening after that 5-touchdown game.
No, not after that one. And Jaden's playing so well right now. I don't think the Falcons will be able to stop him. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, and I'm excited to see what Penix can do in his second start, his first real one against a good team. But at the end of the day, I think the Commanders are barely going to sneak it out on this one.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this game goes, and I'm kind of torn in a lot of ways on this one, Luke, because I've got my Washington to win the division future, and that's not dead after the win against the Eagles. Washington would have to win the last 2. Philadelphia would have to lose their last 2 against the Giants and the Cowboys. So it's very unlikely. But not completely out of the woods. And then, of course, I've got Chiefs, Lions, and Falcons all to win their division. And Chiefs have wrapped theirs up like a month ago. Lions and Falcons are still duking it out for whatever that reason. They can't seem to wrap it up. So
neither team can seem to lose very much.
Yeah, with the Lions, it's hard when you're 13-2 and you're still in a dogfight for the division.
Yeah.
So credit the Vikings on that one. But I think that maybe Atlanta gets the win. I feel like it could be just a spot where Washington, they have that huge win last week, and then now maybe they come back down to earth a little bit. And meanwhile for Atlanta, like you mentioned, it's Penix's second start in a row, finding some rhythm, has a full week of team reps, knowing he's the starter going into the week and everything like that. I think I might be taking the Falcons as a sneaky upset pick against Washington. It'll be a very fun game.
Yeah, and I'm thankful this Christmas Forever flexed this game into Sunday night, because this is going to be a great game. You know, who would have known it would have had this big of playoff implications with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers losing last week and the Falcons controlling their destiny for the playoffs. This is basically a playoff game for them, because you can't expect the Buccaneers to lose to the Panthers or the Saints in the final week of the year. So it's a win or go home. That's the Falcons' mentality this week. So it'll be a great game.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of those playoff implications. If there's any other games that you like, Luke, mention those as well. But I think right now, this time of year, when there's 2 weeks left, it's always interesting to run through the scenarios of what could happen. Of course, in the AFC, we've got the Chiefs as the 1 seed. They've locked it up. Meanwhile, the 2 and the 3 still up for grabs. Buffalo looks like they're going to get to 2. All they have to do is win one more game to do that. And then Baltimore right now, they have the 3 seed, but the Steelers could still get it if Baltimore loses on the final week and Pittsburgh wins. 4 seed Houston's got that one wrapped up. 5 seed right now is Pittsburgh. Chargers at the 6, Broncos at the 7. If Broncos or Chargers lose both their games, it opens the door for the Colts, Bengals, or Dolphins. And it doesn't look likely for the Chargers. They've got the Raiders and the Patriots. But for the Broncos, very interesting. They play Cincinnati this week, and that is a massive game in the AFC. Because if the Bengals win, obviously that's a win for them, loss for Denver, and they get the head-to-head. Then they would need Denver, though, to lose in the final week of the season against the Chiefs, who won't have anything to play for. And meanwhile, the Colts have an easy schedule. They've got games against the Giants and the Jaguars. And the Dolphins have a pretty winnable schedule as well. They've got games against the Browns and the Jets. So a lot of different things could shake out. Do you think it's going to stay status quo with Chargers and Broncos in those last 2 spots? Or do you see one of those 3 teams making a run in the AFC?
Well, I do not think it's going to be wrapped up for the Broncos after this week. I think that game against the Bengals is setting up really well for them. It's a win or go home for the Bengals, and I think that Joe Burrow's been playing so well all year. This late in the year, this is when he usually steps up and makes big plays. So going off that trend, I feel like the Bengals are going to be able to get it done on Saturday and be able to beat the Broncos. The Broncos have kind of been slipping a little bit. Their defense isn't playing as well as they had. They should have lost to the Colts, as we explained last week and a couple weeks ago. But at the end of the day, I think that it's going to come down to that game against the Chiefs for the Broncos. And that's one where you really don't know. You don't know what the Chiefs are, who they're going to put out there, how many of their players they're going to bench, you know, whoever's going to be out there on the field. So that's going to be an interesting to look at next week. But I definitely think the Bengals are still going to be alive this week and get that dub on Saturday.
I'm rooting for the Bengals this week, and there's one sole reason for it. Because, you know, the Chiefs, there's a lot of people that love them, but unfortunately, it's weird. There's a lot of people that dislike them too. I don't understand it. There's people on the internet that talk about refereeing and other nonsense, and I don't know. For some reason, the Chiefs just, people don't like them. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is a great guy. Andy Reid loves his cheeseburgers. You know, Travis Kelce is dating the superstar. I mean, it's awesome. I don't see any reason to dislike this team. But a lot of people do. However, there's going to be a lot more Chiefs fans next week if the Bengals can beat the Broncos, because then the Bengals fans, I can't wait for them to be cheering on the Chiefs. That'll be awesome. They'll be putting on their red and rooting on Kansas City. You know, Colts fans, they can come root on the Chiefs. You know, all the Tyreek Hill fans, you can wear your half Tyreek Hill Dolphins, half Tyreek Hill Kansas City jersey. So, yeah, I'm really hoping that the Cincinnati Bengals can beat the Broncos this week. That way, Chiefs Kingdom is going to get a whole lot bigger next week, and they're going to be cheering on Carson Wentz.
That definitely will be an interesting scenario to see play out next week. But going into the other team, kind of the other side of the coin here, the Chargers, they can clinch their playoff spot here against the Patriots this week. And this is probably one of my favorite bets of the week. Chargers only 4-point favorites. I feel like the Chargers have gotten some rhythm here. They're starting to let Justin Herbert throw the ball more. Ladd McConkey stepped up as a pretty solid wide receiver one. Not top echelon, but he can definitely move the sticks. And I feel like they're going to have enough to be able to beat the Patriots pretty handily. Patriots aren't playing for much, and the Chargers definitely need to lock up that playoff spot this week. So I really like them this week.
Now, Patriots did play really well against the Bills. They almost beat them. If it wasn't for Drake May throwing backwards passes to Ramondre Stevenson that they just let go into the end zone for touchdowns. Ramondre just hated holding onto the football all game long. So it was almost a win for the Patriots against the Bills. Maybe they used that momentum against the Chargers. But that is a pretty low line. I do have to admit, 4 points for LA Chargers against New England in a game where they can lock up a playoff spot. So yeah, that's not a bad play. Should we move over any other AFC games to discuss? Should we move over to the NFC scenario?
Yeah, let's talk about NFC.
So we already mentioned at the top, basically Lions and Vikings. The crazy thing, the winner is whoever comes away with it gets the 1 seed, the bye, home field advantage, all that. Whoever doesn't win the division drops all the way down to the 5. Going to have to play the whole entire playoffs on the road, no rest. So massive implications there. Eagles look like they're the 2. They could still drop if they lose the last 2 games of the season. They haven't clinched the division yet, but Washington, we already mentioned, they have to win their last 2. Philadelphia lose their last 2. Then it gets really interesting in the 3 and the 4 seed spots because the Rams and the Seahawks are right there. However, Rams can also clinch the division this week, isn't that correct? With the win and a Seahawks loss. And then the Falcons and the Buccaneers. I guess the Falcons, could they clinch the division with the win and the Bucs loss as well?
Yep.
So there's some clinching scenarios for both the teams. The Rams and the Falcons have the upper edge right now, upper hand, but it's definitely not over for Bucs and Seahawks. Plus, they could still get in wild cards. Wild cards, top 2 look like they're going to be occupied by the NFC North. You've got Vikings right now at 5, Packers at 6. Then that 7 spot is Washington. And then, if maybe the South or the West somehow gets a second team in. If Washington collapses the last 2 weeks, they'd have to lose to Atlanta for that to happen. So do you think it's going to be those 7 teams currently in the playoffs, or do you see the Bucs moving in, the Seahawks moving in?
Well, right now, I do kind of feel like even though Atlanta is the better team right now, between them and the Bucs, I think that they're going to lose to the Commanders, and the Buccaneers are going to be able to take care of the Panthers. I do, however, like the Panthers plus 7.5 against the Buccaneers this week. I think the Panthers have started to show a little something, and the Bucs, faltered a little bit last week against the Cowboys. At the end of the day, I think the Bucs probably do get the win and are going to be able to get it done in Week 18 to secure the division. But I do like it to be a 1-score game against the Panthers this week because I think the Panthers want to play that spoiler against the division rival. But yeah, I think on the other hand, the Rams definitely got this division locked up. They're clearly, I could even say they're a contender to make it to the NFC Championship or maybe even the Super Bowl just because of the players that they have. Puka Nacua is one of the biggest rising stars in the league, and this offense has just so many weapons. And Stafford can do it. He's been there before. He doesn't always have great games. He's an older quarterback, but at the end of the day, him and Sean McVay, along with a young defense, they can step up and they can really make some things happen late in the year.
I know you like the Rams because you had them higher in the 12-pack than I did. Last week I had them 12th in the 12-pack, and you were not happy with me having them all the way very last. They still got in, but they're very last spot in the 12-pack. Well, Luke, any other games to talk about before we get to your 12-pack this week?
I think that's about it, and I'm getting a little thirsty. I think you're going to like this one, Brent. You're usually a pretty big hater, but I think you're going to like what I got for you this week.
Well, let's see. We'll run down my 12-pack from last week. This is a part of the show where we rank the 12 best teams in the NFL, according to us, the tastiest teams. Last week, my 12-pack was 1 Chiefs, 2 Bills, Eagles 3, Ravens 4, Lions 5, Vikings 6, Packers 7, Bucks 8, Steelers 9, Texans 10, Commanders 11, and Rams 12, and that was the 12-pack. Now, Luke, it is time for you to deliver the 12-pack.
Alrighty, let's start it off hot in Hotlanta. I think that Penix is a really good quarterback. He's a big upgrade from what we've seen from Cousins, and this team has the weapons to put it together and possibly make the playoffs. I just think the Commanders are a little better, but the Falcons, I could see them, giving the team the run for their money if they do sneak in and have that home playoff game. So I'm gonna have them here at 12. At number 11, I don't know if you're gonna agree with this. I don't know if this team's been on a 12-pack all year long.
Oh boy!
But I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that they are one of the better teams in the AFC. They've been heating up recently, and Joe Burrow is undoubtedly a top 5 quarterback in the league. And even though their defense is faltering, they have the weapons. They do have a great offense, and I'm sure you don't want to see them in the playoffs if somehow they can sneak in. I don't think it'll happen just because how many things have to go their way. But I just needed to give them a shout out here because they're starting to heat up. It just ended up being a little bit too late. Next, coming in here at 10 and 9, I got the 2 teams from LA. I think the Chargers are just one spot below the Rams. They're pretty solid, but we've already talked about them. I think that they have a decent chance against a Ravens team. Maybe they can sneak in above the Steelers or Ravens and have a chance against the Texans. That would be huge for them. But right now, I feel like they're just a middling team, and it'll be tough for them to win a game in the playoffs. But I like what I'm seeing from them. I think they're 1 year away. The Rams, I just talked about them. They're a solid team coming in here at number 9. And, I like what they've got. I think that they'll have a chance. And all these teams from here on out, I think, have a chance to at least make it to the championship game. And then at number 8 is going to be the Washington Commanders. And I got them one spot below the Philadelphia Eagles. I still think the Eagles are a little bit better. I think if they had Hurts, they win that game. And, you can't just completely discredit them for losing their quarterback in that one. And he'll definitely be back for the playoffs. I think the Commanders are a good team, though, and they're heating up at the right time. And the Eagles, I feel like they do have to slip. I think at this point in the year, they have one of the weakest coaching, in the entire league. And it's hard to make a huge run in the playoffs. They're probably going to have to win 3 games to make it to the Super Bowl against good teams, and that's hard to do without the best coaching. So what do you think about those 7 through 12? BS?
Yeah, well, interesting you dropped the Eagles that far down to below 7. Obviously if Jalen Hurts is out for a while with the concussion, they're not a top 6 team. But otherwise, I think the Eagles are just still too good, though. I'm impressed with their defense. Saquon Barkley is a beast. I mean, with a healthy Hurts just managing the game, he doesn't have to be amazing. I think Eagles may be too low, which is surprising because I've been against the Eagles all year. And then the other thing that I think is interesting, Bengals at 11, you say don't want to see them in the playoffs. I'd love to see the Bengals in the playoffs because guess who they play first game? The Bills. The Bengals and the Bills in the 2-7 matchup. Oh my, that would be delectable. Give me that all day long. So I've no problem at all with the Bengals if they can make the playoffs. I still think it's unlikely they do. They just dug themselves too big of a hole, and that defense has too many question marks still. But go for it. I mean, it's interesting. It seems like you've got Bengals and Chargers ahead, and looks like you've got admissions of no Steelers, no Texans this week. So both teams that have lost back-to-back games to the Chiefs and the Ravens, 2 really good teams, but both teams kind of got blown out on Christmas Day. So it does make some sense there. I'm excited to see how the final 6 shake out. So go ahead.
Yeah, and to your point about the Eagles, I just feel like these top 6 teams are just on a barely different level, and I'd rather see the Eagles than all these 6 teams above them.
Sounds like some NFC North to bias to
3 teams NFC, 3 teams AFC. Well, the NFC North is only these 3 teams, the Vikings, Packers, and Lions, have only lost 4 games outside of the division all year long. I mean, that's incredible. They just beat up on each other, but the way that these teams are built is to win the NFC North, and to win the NFC North, you beat every other team. It's honestly incredible what these teams have done all year, and I think that they are the 3 best contenders for the NFC spot in the Super Bowl.
Well, it is actually interesting. The Lions are the only team out of those 3, even though they're first in the division, to have multiple losses outside the division.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And so, with that being said, I've got the Vikings at 6 and the Packers at 5. I already explained why I think the Packers are going to beat the Vikings this week, and I think that they're right there below the top 3 AFC teams with probably the 3 best quarterbacks in the league. First up, we got the Buffalo Bills. I've got them at 4. Then the Baltimore Ravens at 3. Kansas City Chiefs at 2. And so the main reason for this is I think the Bills' defense is faltering while the Ravens' defense is getting hot. I would like the Ravens in a matchup against the Bills. We already saw them blow them out, even though it was way earlier in the season. I love the way Lamar's playing right now, and he can definitely go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen with Derrick Henry behind him. I mean, this is likely going to be the matchup to see who can go to that Arrowhead Invitational, and I think the Ravens are going to be able to get it done. At number 2, I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're a great team. Obviously, the Lions are number 1, but the Chiefs, they can't score more than 30 points, and the Lions score more than 30 points every week. Like, the Lions are better than the Chiefs. Their defense is worse, but our offense just has so many ways that they can beat you. And even though the Chiefs do have a very strong defense, I think the Lions offense is going to be able to get it done. We're going to be getting Montgomery back in the playoffs. We might have Hutchinson back for that Super Bowl game too, if he's ready to go, and a few more defensive players that are going to be able to do just enough to get ahead of the Chiefs.
So sad. Every time he does this, it's just sad, sad, sad. The Kansas City Chiefs are clearly the best team in the NFL. If it's not been evident over the last 2 weeks or the last 2 years or the last 2 anything, just last 2 Patrick Mahomes throws. You can talk about the Chiefs' offense not being as good as the Detroit Lions, but at the end of the day, it's Andy Reid and Mahomes, and in the playoffs, they get it done. They showed it. They're getting it done this week. No sacks against Mahomes in the last 2 weeks. This offense is gearing up with Hollywood Brown, Hopkins, X-Men's coming on. Kelsey's going to turn it up in the playoffs. So, of course, yes, Kansas City should be number 1. I actually think the Ravens should be number 2. The Ravens are cooking really well. That defense is getting stronger. Everyone was all Bills this, Bills that a couple weeks ago, and now it looks like they're not even a top 2 team in the AFC. So, yeah, besides the Lions being a little too high, I like your list. They're a good team. The Lions are a good team. It's just the injuries are still major concern. Just because Caleb Williams fumbled the ball a couple times, that doesn't mean the defense is fixed in my eyes. But I'm excited to see how it plays out, Luke. Overall, a solid 12-pack. I would recommend this restaurant to a friend.
There we go. It took me all year, but you finally like one of my 12-packs, even with the Lions above the Chiefs. Wow, what a Merry Christmas this is. Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's your Christmas gift from me, Luke. I'm going to compliment your 12-pack this week. And we hope that you are having a Merry Christmas as well. Thanks for watching Hesse Bros. Luke, any final thoughts this week on Christmas week, week 17 of the NFL season?
And Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas, and let's watch some football. This is going to be one of the most exciting seasons I've ever witnessed, the most exciting finishes to a season and playoff. We've been covering it for you all year, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Have a Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2025 when we talk final week of the NFL season. Chiefs got that 1 seed. We'll find out if the Lions have that 1 seed locked up by next week's episode. Enjoy this week of football. Merry Christmas, and as always, go Chiefs.